Next month, Guinea goes to the polls in a presidential election that already carries major credibility questions. The country's military ruler, Mamadi Doumbouya, who led the 2021 coup, has formally entered the race despite having earlier promised to hand power back to civilians. At the same time, key opposition parties have been barred from running, and a new constitution approved in September has extended presidential terms and cleared the way for Doumbouya's candidacy. With us now to unpack the wider ramifications for Guinea and the region is Global Affairs Analyst Paul Ejime. Paul, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with General Doumbouya's decision to run for president, despite having promised not to and hand over power to citizens. And I guess you can explain why this has provoked so much concern both inside Guinea and outside the country.
So, Guinea is one of the, or you used to be one of the 15 member nations, member countries, 15 nations of West Africa, Economic Community of West Africa, ECOWAS. And then, as you know, by 2020, four of them have had military coups, sacking the elected civilians. The others are Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. These other three, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, have pulled out. They have formed what they call the Alliance of Sahel states. But Mali, because ECOWAS suspended four of them and imposed sanctions, and at one point was threatening to use military force to restore constitutional order in Niger. I think the history, from there, things got bad and the three decided to go. But Mali, under Doumbouya, decided, who came in through a coup, September 2021, didn't follow these three, but tried to follow the ECOWAS supported transition program. But what did not get support was the fact that he carried out last month, there was a change to the constitution, a referendum to allow him to run. Normally, under ECOWAS and the African Union protocols, when you carry out a coup, you are not supposed to be part of the transition election, during election that will happen for the transition to constitutional order. But he now changed this constitution. And by the way, it was almost overwhelming. You may say, for whatever it is, whether that was voter intimidation or manipulation, but he got the change, which is in violation of what I have told you, ECOWAS protocols and then AU. Now, I think that is where the problem lies, because he is now trying to profit from an unconstitutional change of government, which he did in September 2021. That is the issue. The change, you will say, brought in a lot of things. Now people only between 40 and 80 can run. That removes the man that he toppled, plus two former prime ministers who have been convicted of corruption charges. Almost all of them are abroad. He had under him, there have been repression of opposition. I think only two, maybe one would say one formidable opponent who is the former president of the ECOWAS Commission, Lansana Kouyaté. There's also Ajia Kamara. But these are not lightweight, except Kouyaté, that can give what may be called measurable, substantive opposition. Otherwise, 2 major parties have been banned. Some journalists and people have disappeared under Doumbouya, who used to be a legionnaire in the French army. And before he toppled Alpha Conare in Alpha Conde in this coup, which Conare himself, the Conde himself rather, did not do himself a favor, because he also brought in what has become a bug that has been beating a lot of countries and their leaders in West Africa, even Africa, of sit-tight syndrome. He too changed the constitution, even under and carried under with a referendum under the COVID pandemic, that even resulted in the deaths of 3 government officials who were infected by COVID, including the chairman of the Electoral Commission of Guinea. So that is where we are. The democratic space has been shrunk, and there have been depression, human rights is violated. He accused Conde of not observing human rights, but he is doing the same. And a lot of things, so you cannot really say that this election coming up is happening under what you call an even fair playing ground. It is very militarized. In fact, when was it that he went to put his name on the ballot? It was, of course, with dark glasses. He had the soldiers with him. And so he will be there for 5 years if he wins. And he will now continue what we have seen all this before, Peter. Usually deja vu. And the French will say the more things change, the more they remain the same. They will come repression, oppression, and actually almost like a dictatorship. This is their stock in trade. That is what people are afraid of. Have been, because of the experience that we have had in West Africa or other African states. So that is the fear, and that is the what he is planning to do, which is the playbook, like I told you, of most coup makers in Africa.
So, and I've asked this question before, right at the beginning, when we saw this wave of military coups, that they may take off their uniforms, but in the end, it seems as if it's still the military just wearing civilian clothes.
Exactly. And that is really unfortunate, because that is where a region like ECOWAS is coming from when it was set up established in 1975. By some of them, incidentally, were military. Gawan, General Yakubu Gawan in Nigeria, who were they? I think Rawlings in Ghana, Kereku in Benin Republic. He was a military man. He removed his uniform and took on Agbada. Rawlings did the same thing. And I can tell you, this is what Doumbouya is doing. And I believe that this is what the other coup makers, in fact, just across there, in the Gabon, Central Africa, the man there has just done the same thing. And so this is their playbook, modus operandi. And then you ask, each time they do this, they will always go back, and that is the irony, always go back to civilian constitutional order. But because maybe part of it is opportunism, and then they want to taste power. Maybe they think that it's not only the civilians, because the civilians are also not covering themselves in glory, Peter, because they are carrying out what some of us call constitutional coups, just like Doumbouya has, in Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, the man there, Alassane Ouattara, who had just won, I think, the fourth term, but it says it's the second term because he reset the constitution in 2016 when he actually took over after they disputed the election in Cote d'Ivoire with Laurent Gbagbo, who didn't want to leave power. There was civil war that killed about 3,000 people. And then Alassane Ouattara took over in 2011 effectively. Laurent Gbagbo had to go to The Hague and, to face, trial. Eventually, he was let go. He is now doing a fourth term. He was the one that started this change of constitution in 2016. Then Alpha Conde joined. I told you his own was during the COVID pandemic period, and so on and so forth. So it has become a case of they doing 2 terms and then they want to do a third term. The third term syndrome, that's what we call it here. And that has dragged the region into all these crises that when the civilians protest, they probably will not be able to dislodge the civilian, the presidents or leaders because they have the apparatus of power. They will use military to, bring down whatever protest that they are having until the military themselves will come and topple them. So it's become a musical chair. Then when the military takes over, they will now roll out what they call transition program to constitutional order, which they have destroyed, and so on. So you will wonder, when are we going to get out of this cycle? So that's part of the problem. It is no different from what others are doing and what the military. In Nigeria, we have had the same thing. Nigeria had a long spell of military rule, until 1999. Well, thank God there hasn't been any since then. But it's because elections are not credible, they are not transparent, and when the civilians are there, and then they manipulate this, try to carry out these constitutional coups, electoral coups, ballot box coups, and violation of human rights. So that's then, in other words, they have not delivered on good governance.
All right. Sadly, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Mr. Ejime, thank you very much indeed. Great talking to you, and thank you so much for your insights ahead of these important elections in Guinea.
Thank you, Peter. And let's pray for our continent, and not just pray, but let the civilians, let the electorate take, back their countries by voting, people coming out to vote, making sure that their votes count, and then holding whoever they put in power accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much indeed. That was Global Affairs Analyst Paul Ejime helping us understand the significance of the General Doumbouya's candidacy in Guinea's upcoming elections.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to